Welcome, Richard, you joined in just in time, right? See there? Or. He's in the middle of joining. Great. Well, it won't be much difference than when he walks in the middle of it. And we'll start the meeting for September 12th, 2022. I just want to sign this followed by the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Byerly.
Here.
Councilmember Conklin.
Here.
Councilmember Missouri. Here. Councilmember Stevenson.
Here.
Councilmember Brinker.
Here.
Councilmember Morris.
Is here.
He's on mute.
You're muted, Richard, if you're trying to reply. Okay, well, he's here.
Mayor Long.
Let's minimize that.
I've been unmuted.
Okay, now, all right.
Mayor Long.
Here. Approval of minutes for September 12th. I move acceptance. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Any questions or comments on that? Let's vote.
Councilmember Conklin.
Yes.
Councilmember Missouri. Yes. Councilmember Stevenson.
Yes.
Councilmember Brinker. Councilmember Morris.
Yes,
Mayor Long.
Yes. Right, my opening statement says the header was wrong and I read that this was the meeting of September 12th. We just did the meeting minutes for that. This is September 26th. So, public comments, any comments from residents or say taxpayers?
I have none here on.
Request for the Rose to Peace. Provide the Rose to Peace.
Rose to Peace would like to place ribbons on street poles and meters to spread awareness for domestic violence awareness month, which is October.
What's the wish of council?
Approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Other questions? Call for the vote.
Councilmember Byerly.
Yes.
Councilmember Conklin. Councilmember Missouri. Yes. Councilmember Stevenson.
Yes.
Councilmember Brinker.
Yes.
Councilmember Morris.
yes,
Mayor Long.
Yes. 4C, uses Endell Park on February 4th, 2023.
The Frozen Snot organizers would like to request the use of Zindel Park for their annual race and this year they would like to hold it on February 4th. They will be using the same route that was approved the past few years. And I will make sure that they have all the necessary agreements and paperwork signed for this event, which would include the special activities.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move that we give permission to Frozen Snot to use the report.
Second.
February 4th, right? Yeah.
Second, and you said you were gonna put it there, right? Oh, heck. Any further
Great
comment?
thing, but no.
But you're supporting those. who-
I support it, yes.
Any further questions or comments on the motion? Call for the vote, please.
Councilmember Byerly.
Yes.
Councilmember Conklin.
Yes.
Missouri. Yes. Councilmember Stevenson.
Yes.
Councilmember Brinker.
Yes.
Councilmember Morris.
yes,
Mayor Long.
Yes.
I do have a comment I forgot. Want to congratulate the PA Trail Dogs on a successful Boulder Beast again this year. There was a few minor injuries, but it was well run, well attended, and it seems to me that they had a pretty good weather and a good time to do it. So thank you for bringing all those happy people from multiple states in here to enjoy our mountains.
Great, thank you. Do we have any other public comments or requests?
I have none.
Okay, unfinished business, 5A, consideration of ordinance number 2022-08.
This is an ordinance that was renumbered to put in front of from last council meeting and was approved at the last council meeting. This is the second reading. This is required by Act 57 of 2022, which requires that all municipalities adopt an ordinance which will require its tax collector to waive all interest, fees, penalties, or charges in excess of the face amount of the real estate tax notice for qualifying individuals who submit the attestation. And so that's provided for with the adoption of this ordinance, if that is the wish of council.
Do I have a motion?
Move the second reading.
And a second. Any further discussion? Call for the vote.
Councilmember Byerly.
Yes.
Councilmember Conklin.
Yes.
Councilmember Missouri.
yes,
Councilmember Stevenson.
Yes.
Councilmember Brinker.
Yes.
Councilmember Morris.
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes. 5B, consideration of ordinance number 2022-09.
Although this is a lot of paperwork, it actually is very few changes. This ordinance is back to first reading after the meeting with the Police Relations Committee. The police officers requested that a four-way stop be added at East Church and
Hannah,
and Hannah, sorry.
that was it.
Brain freeze. There have been eight accidents at that intersection in the last year, and so it is really right now our most dangerous intersection. It is currently a two-way stop, and so this would make it a four-way stop, which is the same at Bald Eagle Street and Hannah.
So where's the East Church?
East Church is right.
a lot of kids crossing there, a lot of foot traffic.
Do I have a motion?
I move,
A motion that you have a question, we'll do that.
Second.
Second, do I have a second questions?
The one that says East Church in Henderson for the no turn on red signal. That's all, that's blinking yellow light blinks red. Does that mean they can't turn right off of Church onto Henderson? Because it's one way going down, so I just questioned, and it says east and west, so. I wasn't sure if that all should have been in there, both of those. One says left turns, which is a one-way street, so that's a no turn anytime. So
Those were in the existing ordinance.
yeah, well,
Only things that are in bold are additions or changes. Yeah, east,
you see what I'm trying to say, though, there's no.
There's no
turn
right
there.
turn anymore because they abandoned that to make it part of the playground.
Right.
years ago.
Yeah, there's no turn there, so should we eliminate that?
Is this
Or
the
just
first
continue
reading?
with it?
this is the
Is
first
something
reading.
that we can amend the motion to?
Can you look at it?
Yeah, we can remove that because adding it would be a substantive change, but removing it would not. be.
Okay, that's just something that didn't work.
It's aged out.
It's, yeah, the topography has changed there.
Okay, so we had a motion for a second and we're clear about the removal of that, correct? All right, anything else?
Are you gonna put advanced stop signs up down on Anna and Church? Where you're gonna put stop signs,
Right,
because people don't know there's a stop there that are regulars,
right, we have to stop ahead.
stop ahead signs. with it.
Church already has stop signs, but we have to do it there on the end.
Yeah, on Anna.
Any other questions?
That'd be four-way stop at the Village Tavern and four-way stop at Hannah Church, and then you stop at the red light.
Any other questions or comments? Call for the vote.
Councilmember Byerly.
Yes.
Councilmember Conklin.
Yes.
Councilmember Missouri.
yes,
Councilmember Stevenson.
Yes,
Councilmember Brinker.
Yes.
Councilmember Morris.
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes. 5C, award of the bid for the roof replacement for City Hall.
The bids have been received from Buchart Horn for the replacement of the roof on City Hall. And the lowest bid came from Mid-State Roofing and Coating Incorporated for $100,066. And that is for the use of shingles, and it would be the recommendation of Buchart Horn that that be the bid that council approves.
Do I have a motion?
Move acceptance.
I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion, Steve?
Have we identified a place that they need 5 4x8 and the 2x6s? Did we find a place on the roof that was bad that needs repaired? Is that why that's there, or is that in, just in case we find a place that needs something, that we'll have it in the bid to put it in?
I
Steve
believe
wanted
that
to-
that's in there in case they did need to.
So,
But I can't answer the specifics on that because the architect did the bid.
yeah, well, I didn't know if that would come off if they don't need to do it too.
So yeah, we're not gonna pay for something they don't pay.
And my other question is, are they spec'ing 25-year shingles, 30-year shingles? Because I see they asked for one for a metal roof in lieu of fiberglass shingle roofing. Did they, 25s last 20 and 30s last 25, but doesn't, so they never lasted their warning.
It was specified in the bid specs, but I don't have the bid specs in front of me.
I was wondering, because sometimes your bid would be lower, cheaper for 25-year shingles than it is the 30s. And there was and I was surprised at the jump increase in a metal roof of that much, because they were pretty close to the same as residential.
They were at one point, yeah.
Yeah,
That's why we had put it in as a alternate.
yeah, that really surprised me, because I would have leaned that way, just so you'd have a 50-year warranty instead of half of that for just a few more dollars. But it's too much of a jump.
Any other questions?
No, thanks.
Anyone else have questions, comments? Call for the vote, please.
Councilmember Byerly.
Yes.
Councilmember Conklin. Councilmember Missouri.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevenson.
Yes.
Councilmember Brinker.
Yes.
Councilmember Morris.
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes. Any other unfinished business?
I have none, Your Honor.
New business, 6A, considering the appropriate ordinance regarding consumer fireworks.
With the passage of Act 74 of 2022, the city of Lock Haven, like all municipalities, is now able to provide for some regulation of consumer fireworks. That is not sparklers, that's the fireworks you buy at the tent that people set off at their homes. And with that comes the change of the 150-foot rule is from any building or vehicle. And vehicle is new and also does not have to be an occupied vehicle. So there are 3 model ordinances, and I have discussed this with the chief of police and the fire chief. Model 1 provides for consumer fireworks permitting process. That means anyone could come in and get a permit. That would be administratively cumbersome, but also the majority, if not the whole of the city, is within 150 feet of any structure or vehicle. So number 2 is a blanket prohibition against the use of consumer fireworks within the city. And number 3 is a kind of happy medium in what I'm recommending to council, and that provides for prohibition against consumer fireworks. However, if an individual could find a spot that they believe they could set that off on their own property and would be 150 feet from any vehicle or home, then they could make application to do so.
Thoughts?
Does that include the people that shoot them off down to dam?
No, because that is not consumer grade fireworks.
It's not.
Those
Those are
are,
professional grade.
right, those are separate.
So-
And that is the only place in the city you can actually set those off.
Okay. And who fills in the rest of the blanks here for, on the boilerplate? Payment of fee of,
That would be yours truly.
Yeah, because we have administrative time involved with it, so we're always about breaking even or recouping time and expenses. And there is also a fine thing, so who sets that?
That would be basically us looking at what other municipalities set as a fair and reasonable.
So in doing what we're doing this evening. We're just considering, we're not actually voting on the ordinance itself,
Right.
and therefore we come back to us then with what the detail.
With the
might be.
fines still,
Right. Looking for direction on whether you would like model 1, 2, or 3.
Okay, Doug, you.
Just to offer your comment, Greg, so on Susquehanna Avenue, there's multiple properties that are. Their yards are more than 150 feet, including mine. So if I would go down to the end of my yard by the railroad tracks, by the river. Come to you for a permit, and say, hey, I have a 300-foot yard. I want a permit. Do you automatically grant the permit, or do you say, where do you live? Or I pay the fee and I get the permit?
No, it would be reviewed just like the commercial grade ones are by the fire chief. And he looks at all of the data that you would provide, so you would have to say where you intend to set it off. You would have to show that that's farther than 150 feet from any vehicle or structure. And pay for your. You'd fill the permit out first, and if awarded, then you would get your permit fee.
and it does ask how many weeks ahead of time, so you would have to decide that too, what our progression of turnover is from permit time until when they want to shoot them. And is that third model also dictated what days of the holidays and things that you dare shoot them on too?
Yes, there are only particular days that. You do not have the ability to restrict. And those are July 2nd, 3rd, 4th, December 31st. And then, of course, there's some caveats depending on what day of the week July 4th falls on. Also Memorial Day and Labor Day. So you have to still abide by the provisions that the state sets as an overarching rule and regulation.
Doug, you had a question?
Yeah, so just one more follow-up. So if I would come in, say I have 300 feet, you look at it and say, okay, your space is okay, we grant you the permit. But let's say I didn't do any of that. I have 300 feet, I don't get a permit, automatic fine?
It would be.
Okay. Good to know.
Unless it was on 4th of July.
Unless it's on one of the days where it's allowed. Okay.
Yeah, limitations are subject to the following exceptions. Is on page 2 here, so.
And some of them are the weekend before and after.
And New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
Be fine.
Any other questions? Does anyone have a motion to give some direction to city manager?
I would do option 3, model 3, model 3.
Motion
I'll second that.
and a second. Any further discussion, questions?
Greg, would this give us also some power over some of the folks that are setting off fireworks right in town? Is this going to help us to kind of curb some of that goes on? Because I know there's a lot of, in my neighborhood, there's a lot of fireworks.
Yeah, it would be an additional stick. Yes.
There are a lot of renegades up here.
Yeah. Renegades.
Or Summit Street.
For the trouble all staff.
Any other questions or comments? Call for the vote, please.
Councilmember Byerly,
Yes.
Councilmember Conklin,
Yes,
Councilmember Missouri,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevenson,
Yes.
Councilmember Brinker.
Yes.
Councilmember Morris,
yes,
Mayor Long.
Yes. Consideration of the allocation, of the remaining ARP Act funding.
The U.S. Treasury's final rule for the use of ARP Act funds has changed, but it is now the final rule. I guess that's the final rule, but it does permit for the remaining funds to be transferred into the general fund to reimburse for expenditures of payroll since March 3rd, 2021 for qualifying wages and benefits for particular tasks provided by employees of the city. That actually is a little less than half of the qualifying expenses, so it definitely could be used to be allocated to the general fund for that purpose. I bring this up because administratively, this is the easiest way to satisfy the terms of the grant. And that would then transfer the money into the general fund where you could then decide how you still wanted to allocate it, and you can transfer it from the general fund, say, to the sewer fund to do the $100,000 manhole. But it's kind of like CDBG, so every little project that we do, we have to account as if it's a major project. And some of those projects, like the water meters, we had budgeted a total of an estimate of $450,000 based on what was provided, but the water meters themselves have come to 47,000 because we just did the oldest of the meters instead of all of them. The water system pressure reducing valves, we did 13,000, which was enough to get them operational again. They really need to be replaced, but that actually is more money than we get from ARP. So that's something that beyond our funding. So administratively, again, this is the easiest thing to do. Council still has to allocate what happens to that money from that point forward through the budgeting process. But it would be my recommendation that that's how council account for the remaining value. And that it be put into, we have a fund 15, which it could go into, which could be kind of like a holding place as council determines what to do with it.
Do I have a motion for the manager's recommendation?
I do also made that motion. I think it's a good idea and it gives us a little more flexibility and doesn't make us so broke. I think it's a great idea. Let's put it all there.
A second,
Remaining balance.
A second.
motion and a second. Any further discussion, questions? Call for the vote.
Councilmember Byerly,
Yes.
Councilmember Conklin,
Yes.
Councilmember Missouri,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevenson,
Yes.
Councilmember Brinker.
Yes.
Councilmember Morris,
yes,
Mayor Long.
Yes. 6C, consideration of the purchase of IT security hardware upgrades.
So just like was true at the wastewater treatment plant, so it's true for the administrative functions of the city government, in that our IT hardware has aged out and needs to be upgraded. That quote was received from Infradraft, which is a vendor through the Pennsylvania Municipal League. And that comes in at $50,086.07. And so I would recommend to council that we move forward with the replacement of the aged out IT, including the firewall appliances. There is a grant coming available. I have not heard yet which state department is going to be overseeing it, but it is to reimburse for IT upgrades from the bipartisan infrastructure law. I think we're still calling it that. It's been renamed several times, but there is state and local funding available, but you have to apply through your state agency. I would assume it would be FEMA, but that's just an assumption. But once we have more definitive answers, the people who provide our cybersecurity gave a conference call on that last week. And they are meeting with Penn Prime, which is our insurance company, and trying to set up a meeting with the state to find out which agency to apply to. So we will, out of necessity, need to move forward with the IT replacement, but we will also be pursuing to try to get that money through a grant.
Is
What's
this,
your
is
question?
this something we didn't bid because it's professional services?
Yes,
And the next question is, I'd like to see when we do this, some type of an itemized thing. I want to know the different, how much a 48 gigabytes is compared to 324s and wireless AP, plus they're charging us 15,000 to put it in. It's and I'm not against doing it. I think we should. I think it's a necessity. I'm not against that. Just in the future, they may be overcharging on one thing and undercharging on something else. And who was our qualifying, look over our shoulder person who says, hey, these are the good guys to help us? Was it Municipal League or Penn Drawing, or do we have somebody
yeah, they're a vendor through the municipal league.
that knows
And-
that what they have done?
So as
Like a
part of,
history, like a work history of someplace.
as part of our audit and also our annual fiscal audit, and also as part of our cybersecurity, we get 2 different questionnaires. And we have been consistently deficient in most of the responses of that. This company is able to take on the city's infrastructure and they answer yes to all of those things, so that we do actually have cybersecurity insurance. And so that we do have the ability going forward to tell the US government and the state government that we are doing our due diligence as a government, which is why the government has made all this money available as well. Now, that money was announced after we got this quote, so the quote is padded with the expectation that we're getting free money.
Just so we still qualify. If we go ahead with it, then we can go backdate it to get reimbursement. Great. Thank you.
Do I have a motion to move forward?
What's the life expectancy? The 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? They give us an estimate on that, or is this
The current that we have, let me see, was installed in 2014. I do know that the firewalls are kind of like your personal computer, so they age out when they stop doing updates for it.
right?
And so ours are at the end of their life this year. From a financial point of view, all electronic infrastructure is estimated to be 5 years useful life. So anything you can get beyond that is awesome. But yeah, any electronic equipment that we get in the auditing process, electronics are just a 5-year life. So you should anticipate having to replace between every 5 and 10 years, every piece of electronic. Unfortunately, that's,
Yeah, we need to, but
yeah, we already need a new budget, didn't even have to.
the first 2 things on the brought equipment and software list are exactly the same. One says 1, one says 3. So do we need 4 of them, or do we
Yes.
need 1 and 3? Because it doesn't say there's any difference at all between the 2.
We do need 4,
You need 4. So instead of,
but they are slightly different.
it just didn't read different.
I'd like to not say how, but they. are
Okay, that's all right. You don't have to say how.
Any other questions?
No, but I'll move, let's go ahead with the IT security hardware upgrades.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion on the floor and a second. Any further questions? Call for the vote.
Councilmember Byerly,
Yes.
Councilmember Conklin,
Yes.
Councilmember Missouri,
Yes,
Councilmember Stevenson,
Yes,
Councilmember Brinker, Councilmember Morris,
yes,
Mayor Long.
Yes. 6D, consideration of a 3-year agreement with Wayne Township landfill recycling collection.
The time has come again, but this is my last request to spend money tonight. From this point forward, I'm gonna tell you about all the money.
That's what we like.
So. Under Act 101, the city, unlike every other municipality in this county, the city is required by law to provide curbside recycling for its residents. That is not something that the law requires of anything other than a city. So, we have been using Wayne Township landfill, as you're all aware, to pick that up. basically every other week. And so for the current year, we will be paying $32,077, and that's based on their cost of actually collecting it. It's not based on tonnage. So their new proposal is for annual addition of cost based on CPI for the previous year. I did confirm with them that if CPI were to go down, because usually when there's a big jump in inflation, CPI will go down the next year. So Mike Chris did confirm that it would take that into account, so we could see a reduction if CPI were to go down. They also are proposing a shared revenue program with the city, where for what they sell for increased tonnage, this would be for anything above and beyond what we currently provide in tonnage. That a portion of that would be returned to the city minus the $100 per ton processing fee. So their estimate would be that the city would receive about $910 based on that cost sharing. It wouldn't completely, of course, offset cost. So when the grant first started, or when the program first started, the state included a grant to reimburse the city for the cost of recycling. That amount is now down to about $6,000 a year. So the city does pay $30-some thousand every year to recycle everybody's household waste, and gets a grant back for about $6,000. And then from the landfill, if approved, then we would see some small cost sharing there, or revenue sharing, I should say, from that program for any new additional tonnage to try to grow the program. So that's in front of council for its consideration.
Did you happen to know I had a question?
Yeah, I knew you would.
I was glad you asked about the CPI, because I had it marked down to do that too. And they want a 3-year agreement, but the second and third year of the agreement is not, the monthly rate has not been determined. So how can we execute a contract and not know what we're gonna be paying? And I don't know if their price increases as much as the CPI does. How does that reflect a couple more dollars in wages, which is built in anyway? A little bit more fuel excise tax that it takes them to collect the recycling and to go sell it and do those things. How? So I'm not sure that tying it to the CPI is the right thing, but the year 2024 and 2025 is the rate to be determined. So I don't know about doing a contract in 3 years.
The rate to be determined is because it's the base plus the CPI, then they'll divide that by 12. So they can't do that till they know the CPI.
And now they want paid every month instead of
And
annually, which is more paperwork and bookwork for us too, right?
Yeah.
And accounting purposes and auditing and everything else that goes with it.
in your monthly reports, you can see how many invoices we pay. So add 11 more onto that total.
It's hard to believe that they have $100 a ton processing fee. Seems like a lot. But it's gonna be split 50-50. Then you would think it would be 50-50.
Well, it's certainly feasible to go back and say, well, we're interested in 2023 at this point, but not a 3-year.
Yeah, especially if we're trying to generate more tonnage. As this is our incentive to do that, and then they still take another $100 a ton off. So we're making them more money too. So it's just observations, not that I'm against the landfill. I'm glad they recycle for us and they handle that program for us.
Do you have a motion? Do you want to make a motion for what's being proposed, or do you want to make a separate motion that we do 2023 and revisit it?
But talk, that's for input from anybody else, see what they think. Well, the good thing is that the 2024 rate will be the same, and 2025, the rate is the same, so they did not raise that.
So we did look into, when I received this, looked into whether or not it would be feasible for the city to collect it itself. You can find a truck similar to the one that Wayne Township uses. It costs, well, there's one available right now for $25,000. But they come new, $250,000. We could apply for a grant from the state for that. In the past, the cities used the grant for the lead backs. You could apply for that truck. But then having a CDL driver for that truck and a couple people to help pick up, like just a CDL driver is gonna be with wages and benefits, probably $80,000 a year or more to the city. And so personnel wise, it becomes cost prohibitive to do it internally.
Let's dispose of it, sell it, market it.
We have to get like the blue roll-offs. So those are $60 a year and get picked up every other week. So we would have to have a place where after we pick it up, we would take it to those blue roll-offs and fill those up.
But at 365 tons a year times almost $200, that's $730,000. So it still should be something we look at, but we've been with them for what, 20 some years, 25 years? Since we started that.
Yeah, at least
I don't
since we
know.
started it.
I'm not opposed to the proposal, even over the 3 years. There's a lot of things that we do in government that uses the CPI as its measuring stick. So I'm not opposed to any of that. I just go back historically, and again, I'm just rattling my gums because frankly, nobody listens, but I think that the fact that the landfill is an authority, and they're, in my mind, they're to be in service to all of us in the county. It seems to me that their bottom line is, although they have provided service in many places at no charge, manpower and equipment, they still seem to be looking at a profit margin that is a pretty darn good business profit margin. And I'm not sure as an authority that they should really be looking more at, what can we do as you say, Steve, with some of the things that we have to do, just staying on a closer line and making it cheaper for the municipalities to do what they have to do. So anyway, having said all of that, I am more than happy to move the agreement forward with a motion.
I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second to that motion?
I second.
Do I have any other discussion or questions?
Did they happen to say how much they would help us with advertising and promoting and recycling programs? And because we asked that before, we saw a little bit of influx and then it weaned off again to, they were the ones that provide that countywide, but.
Well,
I think
countywide
it's
they do,
customary.
but the city gets a grant to do education for recycling, and so that is 100% offset by the grant we receive from the state every year.
They have agreed to be in a Ranger video.
Oh, that'll be what, that swayed my vote right there.
Wow.
Thanks for bringing that up. I appreciate it.
You think maybe Steve could be in the same video?
No.
You get your rings hat and fit his head? All right, we have a motion on the floor and a second. Lauren, somebody has something really important. Call for the vote.
Councilmember,
Yes.
Councilmember Conklin,
Yes.
Councilmember Missouri,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevenson,
Yeah.
Councilmember Brinker.
Yes.
Councilmember Morris.
yes,
Mayor Long.
Yes. All right, 6E, notice of the 2022 allocation of funding to the state's city's fire relief.
So E, F, and G are all annual allotments. And so the city will be receiving $35,622.91 to pass through to the City of Lock Haven Fire Relief Association. And that association uses that to buy equipment and to also pay for training if training has a cost. And the city will also be receiving $316,276.01 towards general municipal pension system state aid. And each year, the city has a minimum municipal obligation that's calculated in the fall. I just did next year's. And the state provides aid towards that, which the revenue is generated from a tax when an individual uses an insurance company that is based out of the state, not in Pennsylvania. And so these amounts are budgeted every year and are based on the MMO. And our actuary does his best to try to guess what we would get from the state, and he's usually pretty close. And so there is, of course, still a $25,859.99 obligation of the city for the police pension fund. And so that will be paid within 30 days. All that money comes in, but then it all goes immediately out to pay the MMO. And then the final is next year's estimated allocation of liquid fuels, which the city is designated to use for Sunset Pines, is $224,108. And so that will be the extent of the budget for next year for Sunset Pines.
Sunset Pines, where is that at?
I believe that the notice to proceed was issued. The Director of Public Works wasn't able to be here tonight, but I can find out for sure in email. Council.
6H, notice of updated signing.
Just so that no one is caught unaware, new signs will be going up around the dam area as shown on the map. The Director of Public Works has been working with the agency in Harrisburg that helps oversee where the signs are placed and the regulations requiring not only signage, but the buoys for that area.
The Fish Commission, it says in the notes, there's only 4 buoys above the dam. Fish Commission used to provide those. I think they still do. Could we request them to bring 6 down instead of 4? And then why, I know it's probably our responsibility, but somehow the Fish Commission was involved with it. They actually paid for the signs on the bridge to say danger dam ahead. They were put up by PennDOT, but I think they were paid by Fish Commission they originally put. So I was looking to, why are we now all of a sudden being the ones to have to put all the signs?
It is incumbent on the city, according to Harrisburg, to provide and place those things. May have been different personnel in the past. The law certainly hasn't changed, but it may not be something that the Fish and Boat Commission.
It
gets
might, the
financed.
dam itself might belong to us, but the waterways belong to them. And I'm sure the municipalities down through all the other dams, clear to the Conowingo and up and down and the channel markers and everything else, it's always Fish Commission. So I was just questioning why now they're dumping down on the city on their waterway for us to protect it, and it's their water. It's our dam, but it's their water that goes over there. Rather, it's just me being me, but when a state agency comes along and says, hey, you have to do this, this, and this, well, why? We did before, no precedent had been set. And show me where it says we are the ones that are responsible to do that until they fabricate something and then throw it at us. So, I know we store the buoys for them and put them in. We do a lot for the Fish Commission. No. So it's
Your
just,
headline.
it's just a matter of,
Calls out.
yeah, efficiency. That's not a voting thing, so.
No. But
It was just me questioning
important point.
the things that they rope us into sometimes that are not our responsibilities. And the signs, for instance, even on the state roads, they're not our signs. They shouldn't be our signs. Ours would come off of non-state roads. So I didn't get a chance to look over all those things to make sure that we'll do our share, that they have to do their share too. So thank you for that report.
6I, announcement fair housing poster contest.
Is, just letting council know and the public as well of the fair housing activity for 2022. The city is working with Clinton County government and Clinton County Housing Authority to do a fair housing poster contest. We're doing this with Keystone Central School District. Grades 4 through 8 will be a category, and they will have first, second, and third place. And then 9 through 12 will have first, second, and third, and there will be $100 prize for the overall best poster. The theme is welcome to my neighborhood, and it's just meant to be a fun, interactive way to get fair housing needs out and start the conversation about the topic. It is one of those things that is required by us through the CDBG program, so we have to switch it up and keep it fun. We did do this, I think, about 5 years ago now, so be fun to do it.
Any other new business?
I had none, Your Honor.
Hey, FYI, reports and authorities.
Variety of information is provided for, just council information. I will point to, the very final document, which lets council know that the railroad crossing project that started in 2016 and had a final inspection in 2018 has finally been closed 6 years after it was done. So that formality of that letter must have been stuck underneath somebody's pile of paperwork that they finally got to the bottom of, but
Their desk probably looks like mine, so. Anything else?
that's all I have, Your Honor.
Anyone else have anything for council?
Or a wrong phone number someplace here. I read over the things about the dam. Or the was under emergency contact information, instead of saying 748, said 7 or 487 or something. It was to the call center. So if you dial the wrong number, you're not going to get anybody to answer you. So I can't put my finger right on it now, but I did read it.
That would be in the minutes of the meeting for whole.
I found it. It's number 27. City's 24-hour emergency contact is via the Clinton County Fusion Communication Center, and that's where the number's wrong, on number 27. I did read it.
I believe you. Have anything else?
Oh, well, yeah, I do.
Go ahead.
Unless you're ready. I did attend the Susquehanna Apartments dedication today. Even though it was in Flemington, there was a lot of representatives there. And CEDACOG people and everybody did a fine job. They took little tours. And the place is beautiful. I wish we had more places like that in the community. It was a very nice dedication. They had the groundbreaking a few years back. And COVID and everything, now they are finally just getting ribbon cutting. And I also attended the Veterans Park groundbreaking today for the city, and that was a nice affair. Beach Creek Legion surprised everybody, $100,000 donation. And they listed multiple, and I would not be, I'm sure the Express was there to cover it. They'll list all those large donations that they received from private and companies in our area to help to donate towards that project. And Dave Barker's leading that project, and it's well on its way. So we're happy to be there today.
Thank you for attending. I was a better township. Anything else?
Great Thursday, 6 o'clock, Central Mountain and LHU.
It's always a nice.
Be on the lookout. Yeah. Good time.
I have the honor of judging that again.
I heard that.
I mean, of course, I'm biased towards Rob. But I stopped over, they have Life Skills Cafe on Friday, so Ranger Casey and I went last Friday to that, got my frozen hot chocolate that tastes just like Tim Hortons, so.
Bribing you early.
No, I paid for it. I paid for my Life Skills Cafe food and beverage, and it was 2 chocolate chip cookies. This Friday is banana bread or pumpkin bread. So, yeah.
Speaking of Robin Elementary, last Friday was Friday before I got to take part in an assembly where they were teaching the kids the rules, and it was a Family Feud assembly, and I and Officer Perlman, Baumgartner, and Officer Beck were part of the community family, along with Albert Jones and Commissioner Harding and School District Superintendent Jackie Morton. And we went against the teachers and we won. But it was a lot of fun. I was happy to see that the police were part. We've encouraged them to do more outreach, and it was really nice. The kids loved seeing them there, and Officer Baumgartner even danced on his way up to the podium like they do on the show. And I don't think he was real keen on that, but I talked him into doing it.
Tyler Barth is the principal there at Robin, and I think last year was his first year as principal there. He had been up in Rehoboth, as I recall, and so yeah, he's been doing great things. Kids absolutely love him. He loves the kids.
Yep.
But different projects that have come along, like the Christmas concert last year downtown, just was packed, and there were so many people there who didn't have kids with them in Rob. But you know, how many times you get to see 100 kids singing Christmas carols and stuff.
Right.
So yeah, it was really well attended, and it was, I think, the grand opening of the candy store as well.
Yes.
So that had a steady line that night. But yeah, a lot of great things are going on with Keystone Central in the city, so that's great.
Have anything else? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
You do.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Heard that we